I'm Michael Boriskin, the Artistic and Executive Director of Copland House, and I am so delighted to kick off Cultivated Spaces 3.0, which is the online version of our annual Cultivate Emerging Composers Institute. Like the rest of the world, Cultivate transitioned to this virtual format when the pandemic struck in 2020. We've been very proud that despite the worldwide shutdowns, we were able to carry on in this virtual format in both 2020 and 2021 in collaboration with our wonderful media partner, I Care If You Listen. We returned in 2022 to a fully live Cultivate session, except for the final public performance, and we have instead produced this virtual series of world premieres of all 6 pieces written by our fellows this year. Today's program is the first of 6 that will premiere on coming Thursdays at 5 p.m. Eastern Time, and we hope you'll join us for all of them because they'll be featuring really remarkable, imaginative new works. And this space from which I'm speaking is really the ideal place to kick off this new series, Cultivated Spaces 3.0, for several reasons. Aaron Copland was a peerless, lifelong champion of his fellow composers, and this place, Copland House, has always been animated by his kind of professional generosity and good musical citizenship. And likewise, our Cultivate Emerging Composers Institute, of which Cultivated Spaces is our web platform, is all about mentoring and supporting gifted young composers at the start of their professional careers. Right now, we're going to start off this series with Paul Kerekes and the rich, exhilarating piece that he wrote called Sanctum Variations. And the sanctum in the title that he was referring to is right here in this very room, Aaron Copland's studio. Copland House is not only based in his home here, his New York home, which was his longtime residence just north of New York City, but most of Cultivate's work sessions, rehearsals, and evening presentations largely took place right here. Paul has spoken about how precious and essential workspaces are to creating new ideas and accessing what he calls a focused state of mind, and how, especially during the pandemic's shutdowns, our desks, our studios, our musical instruments became a kind of protective bubble. So we're going to turn now to Paul, who's going to tell us a bit more about his Sanctum Variations, and then we're going to hear the work's world premiere, performed by some of the fearless artists of our Music from Copland House ensemble: clarinetist Moran Katz, violinist Paul Garcia, cellist Alexis Pia Gerlach, and pianist Margaret Kampmeier. And then Paul will be back in conversation with Cultivate director Derek Bermel. So thanks again so much for joining us, and please enjoy.
Hi, my name is Paul Kerekes, and I wrote the piece that you're about to hear right now called Sanctum Variations. And the idea behind this piece grew out of the artist studio as a type of sanctuary for the composer, because I couldn't ignore the fact that we were all about to be at Copland's own house, an inner sanctum. And coming out of COVID, it seemed that it was something that I really thought about a lot, since my own little nook near the piano became a real kind of safe zone for me, and this kind of escape from reality. Around the time of planning, I also saw two paintings that really inspired me that also had to do with this idea of the studio as an escape. One of them was by Matisse called The Red Studio, and the other, which was a response to Matisse's, is by Rothko called Number 21. And there were certain elements visually that I responded to very strongly. The most obvious being that the paintings are almost entirely subsumed by this deep red color that kind of draws you in, and you sort of feel the meditative vibe of the studio immediately. But another thing that really stuck out to me that I wanted to try to evoke musically were the use of negative space as a way of kind of revealing new shapes. So those were some of the things I thought about, and the players are absolutely incredible. Just thank you to everybody who put this together, and enjoy. Thank you so much.
Hi, my name is Derek Bermel, and I'm the director of the Cultivate program at the Copland House. And welcome, Paul Kerekes.
Hi, Derek. It's so good to see you again.
So, on hearing that piece again, what just strikes me is just how vivid it is and how much is going on all the time. I mean, these players were just playing constantly, and everyone's moving at different speeds, different pulses. But the effect is this kind of smear effect. I think like a mass kind of sound. You called it soupy,
Yeah.
but kind of moving in the same direction, but not at the same rate. And um, what was it like for you to approach? Have you ever written for this ensemble particularly before? You've written a lot of chamber music because you're a great pianist yourself.
Yeah, actually, thank you, by the way. I have never written for this specific ensemble, but I have written a bit for piano and cello, because cello is actually a secondary instrument of mine, and I've worked a bit with some ensembles that were piano, cello, percussion too. Numerous Code are really good friends of mine. So there was a little bit of like a subset within, I guess, this ensemble, but this was the first time for really including like violin and clarinet too, which was uh, really great too. I feel like all of these instruments can just do anything you wanted to do. So when I was given the assignment, it was like, yeah, how much can I fit into six? I have 6 minutes to fill, and it was, luckily all of these instruments that can really handle the acrobatics and all of these ideas I wanted to get out in that amount of time.
And it's a
Yeah,
variations. So
yeah, that
yeah.
was actually something that I decided as pretty early on in writing the piece, because I initially came up with the first two smaller sections, which represents the theme. So it was like this A and this B, and I guess, classical part of me immediately kind of jumped to the tradition of themes kind of being in that sort of binary form. So it just kind of revealed itself once I had those two ideas. Like, I think I have enough here to just kind of keep doing A prime, B prime, A double prime, double prime. But I definitely did want it to be a set of variations that had a very left to right flow to it, where you couldn't necessarily feel or hear the seams of
Yeah, I
um,
think it achieves that really beautifully. You have all these piano arpeggios while the others are playing lyrically, and then it
yeah.
very subtly shifts into the next one, um, and uh, and it kind of it feels like it ping pongs between this moving up and then moving down, but the moving down is somehow lighter and airier, and the moving up is very propulsive.
Exactly. Yeah, the contour of these lines was something I thought about a lot. And
You
on the
use a lot
surface,
of words, I notice about that are come from the art world, like contour and line. I mean, which are also used in music. But one word that struck me in particular that you talked about was negative space.
mm,
And since the work has at its inspiration somewhat painters like Rothko and Matisse, what does that mean to you, and how do you realize that kind of thing musically?
yeah, the visual ideas are kind of what always guide me. In this case, it was negative space was a really big uh, part of constructing the piece, and particularly how negative space was used to, like in the paintings, um, the negative space actually created shapes that were like these other objects. It wasn't painted with, what am I trying to say? Yeah, the paint wasn't creating the shape, but actually the space where you saw the canvas pop out a little bit or an underpainting pop out. That was what was creating the shape. And in the music, a lot of that was evoked by the piano, typically triggering the rest of the ensemble to extend whatever harmony it was hitting, and then that would lead to another piano hit. So the feeling was almost as if the piano played by itself, you would kind of just hear these series of hits that sounded like a chord progression. But in between those hits was all of this activity in the violin, the cello, and the clarinet that to me represented the negative space, which I know isn't technically exactly a translation of negative space into music, which would be like just rests. But even that idea found its way into the melody of the opening, and really a lot of the music throughout typically begins with a feeling of breath, and then music after da 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 da. So you get these little tiny gaps where, I guess, in a way, the music that's revealed there is in the lengths of music between the gaps. So you're hearing just a varying amount of short phrases, then longer phrases, and then if you were just hearing the rests, the locations of those would be kind of shrinking or getting larger in a way.
Yeah,
It's kind of
and
how I
of
thought about
course,
it.
in music, time is our medium as opposed to space. Although I guess if you're Einstein, they merge.
Yeah.
But in any case, we're working in a slightly different way. So as you said, the exact parallels may not be evident,
Right.
but still, that inspiration is there from the visual work.
Exactly. It just kind of got my brain rolling. And, once I came up with the idea, then it really became about using how can I flip that musical idea around as much as I can. And, actually, something that you really helped me with a lot during the week um, was kind of breaking that perpetual motion a little bit too, because the thing about this negative space idea and what it resulted in was kind of like steady 16th notes the whole time with these moments of breaks. And I think as we were rehearsing it and hearing it, there was this kind of equalizing effect that happened with all of those steady streams. So having some moments that were really kind of, we took one measure and made it eighth note triplets instead and kind of like stretched it. And I think that in a way, kind of actually slowing the music down sort of heightened the excitement in that particular moment. So I think that was the one thing I ended up having to kind of edit a little bit that came out of this idea of negative space a bit. But
Yeah, and of course, it's a workshop, so
yeah.
that's the benefit of having a few days right up there at the house to
Yeah,
probe.
exactly. It was amazing to work with all of the musicians. They were just such high level. It was just such a treat to be able to say, "Yeah, can you try this out?" And some of it I didn't even actually have notated at the time. It would just be, "Can you do eighth note triplets there instead?" And they knew how to do that immediately. So definitely felt very blessed to work with them. And we
Yeah.
also just kind of shaped a lot of the expressive markings in the piece too. That was another thing that was really kind of workshopped over the week, like just to really kind of go in and specifically create these shapes and peaks and valleys, and a lot of that they did very naturally too. So sometimes it was even just hearing them and then, okay, like dictating exactly what expressive markings they were doing. So it was great. They're just such naturals.
Well, it was great having you there. Great hearing your piece again after all this time, and and I hope everything's going to go great. I know you're performing, you're composing, so
Yeah.
lots of luck with all that.
Thanks
And
so much, Derek. Yeah, I hope we get to see each other again soon, and I hope you're well too.
yeah, yeah, and
Mhm.
thanks so much again to I Care If You Listen, who is hosting this on their site and the American Composers Forum, and of course thanks to Michael and Ian and David who kind of oversaw us and took care of all the needs during the week, especially difficult during COVID times. But thanks again, Paul, and hope to see you very soon.
Yeah, thanks, Derek.